What's up, guys? This is Ninja. I'm a Ninja, and basically, sorry, I just ate dinner. But what I wanted to say was I was watching this video, and real quick, it's the real weird way we see numbers by Be Smart, and they have 5.37 million subscribers, 1.1 million views 9 months ago. And basically, I watched a good 4 or 5 minutes of this video, and I was like, I gotta do a video response because this is like seriously like what the hell. But anyways, pretty much, um, you'll see, you'll see. I can't really explain it, but you'll see. So let's get started. Yeah.
Hey smart people, Joe here.
I'm the only smart person you need to worry about, by the way. Just putting that out there, but continue, Joe.
I want to do a little experiment on you. I'm gonna flash some images and I want to see if you can tell how many dots are in those images. Okay, and another one. One more. Okay. Okay, and another. There's a really interesting surprise hidden in this test. For 1, 2, or 3 dots, I bet you were able to count them pretty much instantly without even thinking about it. Maybe even for 4, but 5 starts to get a little bit harder. And once we get to 8, there's just not enough time to process the dots.
7.
Just kidding. There are actually only 7 dots in that last one. All right, try this. You can count the number of each color star almost instantly, but counting the total number of stars takes way more concentration or not as accurate. Psychologists have done these tests on huge numbers of people going back more than a century ago, and they find it takes people basically the same amount of time to recognize 1, 2, or 3 dots or shapes or
Real quick, I just want to cut it off because I guarantee that there's something they didn't test. And basically, if they went into groups, if they did like 10-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, and 30-year-olds, and 40-year-olds, and so on, the older people were, the faster or the better they could do with more numbers. And I'll explain why as we go along.
objects. But beyond 3, we very quickly answer slower. We start to make mistakes. Why do scientists care about having people count dots? Well, there's a surprising and profound secret hiding.
Actually, I like this idea, and I kind of want them to move forward with this idea. It's just they need people like me to be part of that idea because they need a good motor to push the idea to kind of sail the sea, so to speak. They need a good boat, and I would be that boat. Basically, like put me in charge of the whole thing, and I can guarantee that if I have some AIs working on it, guarantee results. I can't have AI. I need at least, like when I was in college, I would need Chris. I would need the black dude, and I think it was a black dude, an Asian dude. I forgot the third dude. I felt bad, but I had basically a small group of 3 people, and they loved my intelligence basically. But continue.
In these little experiments. Hints of a strange way that we count and think about numbers.
It's really not strange, but continue.
Deep in some unconscious part of our brains, we have a weird ancient way of representing the muchness of something that goes way back in our evolution before we ever wrote numbers down, even before humans existed.
Not really.
And it can explain this.
Not really. Like that is something that minds like great minds would think of, and why it tends to be that great minds tend to like Beethoven and things like that. So why smart people like that stuff, and why dumb apes like the rap shit that the young kids, they like rap and like the crap that's fake and auto-tuned because they're young and they like anything that's catchy and rhythmic or just kind of there, like a bird, right? But like I guarantee of really old birds, basically, really like once you start getting older, once you get more mature, classical music has a tune, and so smart kids like it as well. So
There's something pretty weird about Roman numerals.
Not really.
The first three numerals make sense. It's just tallying up ones. The sticks and bones show that ancient humans were using tally marks to keep track of numbers as far back as 40,000 years ago. But why is 4 written as this instead of this?
but real quick, it doesn't really prove that because the tally mark really like. Hey, let's look at those bones. Yeah, they're just tally marks. That doesn't mean anything. They're just marks. Like literally a line. All it means is got one line, got one line. There's no thought behind it. They're just lines. How many did I get? There's 7 lines in total. 7. That's it. And you're saying that they had like it was a thought? No. There's slashes in the bones. Kids do that. It doesn't mean intelligence.
Sticks and bones show that ancient humans were using tally marks to keep track of numbers as far back as 40,000 years ago.
Right. It doesn't mean anything. They're just marks.
But why is 4 written as this instead of this?
It wasn't until later.
At 4, instead of just tallying up the marks, suddenly we have
That's those last bones had.
instead of this. At 4, instead of just
That,
tallying
the last bones, the ones he just showed us, that was what you saw.
up the marks, suddenly we have to do subtraction, take 1 away from 5. It's not exactly difficult, but it's weird. Well, maybe
That came later. You're conflating the two.
abandoning tally marks after 3 was just a Roman thing. If that's true, then how do you explain this?
What about it? I'm pretty sure that not all of them survived. You know what I mean? Chances are there was a battle that happened. Pretty much. And there is a reason, like, the first one, like the lines, you can mistake the little chip at the top. They can be mistaken for something and it throws it off completely. As far as number 4, um, like that works, but after a while, like once the numbers get bigger, it works less. Um, the fourth one's pretty obvious. Just dots means that dots anywhere can represent anything. Uh, the fifth one, look how extravagant that is. That's not gonna last. It's not simple. And the last one, again, like it's not conform enough, basically. And so errors can easily, it's not simple enough. Like errors on the wall or the paint can peel and you would think something. Whereas the Romans, like if paint peels, like it'd have to be in a way to be completely obvious. Like you would know it would be at least 4 if something fell. It can be 4 or it can be 4, and what comes next, who knows? I don't know because there's no examples, and I don't think I've. What would 12 be x11? You know what I'm saying? So like, they probably have a way to write it. Like if there's an X and then it tears, you know it's at least 10, basically. But this one, like if it's a V and it tears, you don't know if it's this one or this one. If it's this and it tears, it's kind of the same thing. But the point is, like, I don't get too much into it. It's gonna be too much work.
Huh. They stop straight tally marks after 3 or 4 too. Well, surely our number system doesn't follow this weird pattern, right? Well, 1 is obviously a tally mark, right? But 2 and 3, well, you might be surprised to learn that those actually derive from 2 or 3 horizontal bars that became tied together when written by hand. It can't be a coincidence.
So it's 4. It's the 1 and the V, but it's an upside down V. So maybe we're using oh shit.
Explain this.
So if it's an upside down V, maybe we're using the Etruscan model for 5 minus 1 to make the 4, right? And maybe that isn't Roman after all. Pretty much. Maybe we have a little bit of both. Who knows?
Is obviously a tally mark, right? But 2 and 3, well, you might be surprised to learn that those actually derive from 2 or 3 horizontal bars that became
Early Hindu Brahmi numerals. But you're not, like, there's so much questions, so much information. You're not saying timelines aren't, you know what I'm saying?
tied together when written by hand. It can't be a coincidence that all these distinct cultures somehow came to the same conclusion.
By the way, I'm just trying to feed you thoughts to make you, like, wonder and to know what he's saying is not definitive, and how it's an open-ended statement, and how he's trying to treat it like, oh, we know because, and it's like, yeah, but it could be this, and it could be that, and it could be that, so how do you know? And he doesn't.
They all switch from tallies to symbols after 3 or 4 in order to be quickly understood by our brains. This is a hint that there's something weird and
Not really a hint, it's kind of telling you why. It's to be recognized by your brain. That's simply it. It's to be recognized. Instead of having to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, it just tells you all the 3 X's, so 30 and 4 dashes. That's it. That's simply that. It's simply that.
special about how our brains recognize and represent numbers. We're going to explore a bunch of weird things that you don't realize that you do when you think about numbers, and then discover a pretty surprising answer to why your brain does this.
Nope.
It seems like for a few objects, we don't actually have to count them one by one. We just see them all at once without counting. But for 4 or more objects, we can't quickly and reliably name the number that we see. Things start to get
There's a reason for that. Do you know why? It's called intelligence. Push it. Excellent. Push the button. 1 second. There we go.
approximate. Okay, try to decide which of these groups has more dots.
I can guarantee that an older fellow that was dealing with dots his whole life would probably count faster than I could, or you could. But as far as just general, it's kind of like intelligence. Like, as long as it's new, then you can measure it. But the second it becomes like the second time around, it doesn't count. This is kind of why I hate time trials on video games, because people will sit there until they master it. But that's not your first run, though. It doesn't mean anything, Your first time, right? Like when you're a virgin, basically, on this track, that should be the one that's counted, not your most perfect, best run ever. You had a flu that day, so you lasted longer. Like, no,
Now do the same thing for these two. You can more easily distinguish 2 distant numbers than 2 closer numbers.
You know why? Because they're distant. They're not closer.
All right, that's not too surprising. Now do the same thing with these 2 set of dots. Which has more? And what about these two sets of dots? That one was much easier, wasn't it? Yet both of those pairs differ by the exact same amount.
But there's less. There's less dots, more familiarity, more intuition, basically. And again, to a child, a newborn, huh? But to some 90-year-old, 20. You know what I'm saying? Because the tuition.
10 dots. Even though the difference between them was objectively the same, we have a harder time distinguishing two larger quantities.
Yeah, but because there's a lot more to count than the smaller quantities. And most of the time, those smaller quantities are familiar to us because we might have seen them through life. And they get more familiar. Basically, so we know, oh, it's 10. This one, oh, it's more than 10 because I couldn't easily just so much more than 10.
We invented calculus, but we can't tell 90 from 100 dots. I mean, a computer could do that, easy, but not us.
Yeah, because we don't, like, it's hard to compare humans to machines. Let's just say there's a reason why we have AI and why AI needs us, basically. And to most in the way humans, AI is just gonna and kill. But thinkers, like myself, for example, AI wants. It's gonna keep alive because AI can only operate inside the box. And it can only think outside the box by measurements that we give it. For example, what are these 4 definitions? What are all the complicated things? And they're like, oh, there's 10 complications, but that's it. It won't be able to write anything beyond that unless we tell it. And at some point, it's going to fuck up, and that's why America sucks. Because a lot of people in government and in places of power are not intellectuals. They're muscle heads, meat heads, people that were good at football, or the Olympics. Basically, people should have been athletes, but probably failed out of those. So it's like failed baseball players are in charge. It's because they're like, "I'll kick your ass," and the guy's like, "I'm sorry," and then he wins. And that's, anyways.
Okay, comparing dots is hard, maybe.
No.
Surely we're real pros when it comes to comparing actual numbers. I mean, we see digits everywhere, every day. I don't look at dots all day.
Right, that's called familiarity.
Here's another experiment. Give people 2 digits that are far apart, and they can quickly figure out which one is bigger. But when the digits are close together, people take longer to figure out which is bigger.
It depends.
It gets
Depends on how young the kid is.
weirder. It takes us longer to compare larger numbers versus smaller ones.
Also, if it's 2 numbers like a 2 and a 9, it's obvious because 2, 9, like that number is vast, whereas 5 and 6, it's like playing like darts, basically. It's like, what do you think's gonna be easier to hit, the 2 and 9 or the 5 and 6? Like, duh, you stupid ass.
Even if they're only 1 apart, comparing 3 and 2 takes less time than 4 and 5, which takes less time than 8 and 9.
Yeah, because 1 and 2 is closer to 0. Most people know 0 because they aren't thinking about shit. In fact, most people don't think about 0, they think about nothing. There's nothing there. And what's the closest thing to nothing? 0. What's closer before this? Or what was before 0? 1. What's next? 2. What's next? 3. And you go, and then it's like saying like people can recognize, or they'll think of 1 before they think of 792. No shit. It has nothing to do with the size. It's just, it's aligned. It's
Researchers have tested tons of people on these things, and essentially everyone takes longer to compare larger numbers or numbers that are closer together. And we aren't consciously aware we're slower, but the computers don't lie. It happens with bigger numbers too. When people are asked whether a 2-digit number is larger or smaller than 65, The closer the number is to 65, it takes more time to answer. This isn't what we'd expect if we were just comparing the number symbols or...
You know why? It's called familiarity. Common sense. 20 to 60. 60. Obviously 20 is small. 60 or 62 or 61. And you have to think about it because you're like 6 and then 6 and then 1 and then 2, 61. Some people. To some other people, again, familiarity, like, oh, 61, 61. They just know 65 is smaller than 67. They just know, right? But a kid, I'm lost. I don't know.
If we were computing the difference with subtraction or something.
Computers are age 0. They know.
That's
the thing about computers, they know.
If when we see any number...
That's why I hated, what was it? Like, they had Dota, in the Dota days, they had an AI that can play Dota that beat the best players in the world, but only on a specific champion. And they try to say that mattered, and to me, I was like, the big fucking deal, who cares? All it's doing basically is, it's like, it's a circle with the 1, 2, 3. That's basically all it is. You're either in the circle, and you're either in the 1, 2, or 3 range, and basically that was the combat. But the second you have it played in Italy, probably not gonna do so hot, right? We gotta jump around and do all kinds of stuff. That's a lot harder to program and make into something that works. Like, the reason why bots are so easy to beat is because they're easy to beat because once you get in their mind, you can trick them into running into a stupid error and you beat them through that. Because they're not actually thinking, they're pretending that it's called AI. I think they should change the name to AP because it's just an advanced program and there's no AI. It's not even faking it. It's just AP. Or it's a program that somebody wrote. It's an advanced program. Like nowadays, yeah, it's actually AI, but it's more or less it's probably AP because it's as good as, it's just that what's called, the quality of the AI bots this day and age is just so high compared to the intelligence of humans, basically, that it seems like it's actually a person. But like, if you're smart enough, you can be, oh, that's an AI, basically. And that's why there's people out there that will fall for, like, oh, that's fake a picture, but they'll fall for it like it's a real picture, basically. And the only reason why, like adults, for example, or like grandmas and grandpas, why they fall for the what's called the African prince that needs your money to give you money, right? They will fall for it because it never happened to them before. So sure enough, and they can't see through it. But with AI, you can see through it unless you can't. Basically, unless you're unfamiliar, unless you don't know what to look for. But if you do know what to look for, you can tell it's fake, right? It's the same thing with numbers. It's the same argument.
Greater than 3, we automatically translate them into some sort of quantity. And this is what leads to confused labels. This isn't what we'd expect if we were just comparing the number symbols or if we were computing the difference with subtraction or something. It's as if when we see any number greater than 3, we automatically translate them into some sort of quantity. And this is what leads to confusion when comparing
What the fuck are you talking about?
Numbers. Here's a very weird question. What number subjectively feels closer to 10? 9 or 11? Most people answer that 11 feels closer, even though they both differ by 1. If you don't,
I would have said 9. See, that's a stupid example. What does it prove? What did you prove?
Believe me on that one. Which of these numbers feel closer together? 9 and 10 or 99 and 100? Same.
Oh, people are gonna say 9 and... Actually, it can go two ways. Either it's very obvious, or it's just so unfamiliar that they go with it. So,
Objective difference, but most people answer that the larger numbers feel closer.
and again, it's because of familiarity. It's unfamiliar, so I don't know. Again, it's like hitting a dart. What do you think's gonna be easy, 9 and 10, or 99 and 100? And you would think 99 and 100 are bigger, so they'd have, you have a bigger dartboard, so yeah, they'd be bigger. It'd be easier to hit, so they're probably closer.
If you ask lots of people to select numbers at random between 1 and
No, it's not people, it's age groups.
50, we tend to pick smaller numbers more than larger ones, which is definitely not random.
Yeah, it is. It's 1 out of 100, 1 out of 10 is just the most, when it's the most used, so it's the most familiar, basically. But I can guarantee if you have a group of people and you train them to use that 1 out of 1,000, after 100 years, that group that had grown up in the society, that had their influence in their society, to be more accustomed to 1 or 1,000 in that whole scenario. 1 out of 1,000 is going to be more common than 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100. It's because it's familiar.
As if we have a jar of numbers in our head where small numbers are overrepresented. And we can
We know it's kind of true, because like that jar is basically your brain, and they're overrepresented because your brain is small, basically like a small jar, basically. But if you're thinking about numbers all day, you have a big brain or a big jar. So 1 out of 100 is gonna be more accustomed to you because that's what you're thinking about in a day. So
demonstrate this small number bias in a different way too. If I give you two
yes, bias, exactly, bias. That's what it is.
different series of numbers,
Which most evenly covers the range between 1 and 2,000. It looks like the top. And that's because you have 2,000s, and then over here you have 3, and then down there you have 3. So maybe, okay.
which one looks like it most evenly covers the range between 1 and 2,000? Take a look at them for a moment. Most people respond that this
I said the top one.
series is more evenly spread out, more random.
Not really.
The other series has way too many large numbers, right? Actually, the top series is the one which more evenly samples the range. The other series oversamples small numbers. Second series just feels better to us.
No, it feels better to stupid people. I'm the smartest man in the world, by the way. That's why I chose A. Most people, if they're right, chose B for whatever reason, and this is why I do well at parties when I drink, because then I'm likely to choose B because I'm drunk, as opposed to choosing A because I'm just fucking smart. Basically, that's what's going on.
It's because smaller numbers feel farther apart, and we kind of compress large numbers together.
Not really.
It's almost like we think logarithmically. Is that why our banknotes and coins are divided up like this?
No.
Is that why our banknotes and coins are
They're divided like that because, generally speaking, like, it's kind of like the same thing with a monopoly money. Is you're more than likely to be trading in 5s and 10s into 20s, and you're very unlikely to be dealing in 500s. And then ones, yeah, they come up, but of course, in the game of Monopoly, it's a little less common because it's not a round 5, 10 number. It's a 1. Whereas 5 and 10 and to 20, which is the most, I think the biggest pile in the whole group, you're more than likely to have 20s because, 20, 40, 60, 80, here you go. 20, 40, 60, here you go. 20, 40, here you go. 20, here you go. Or 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, here you go. Or here's 20 to all of the 300, right? 320s, right? It would work. And you're staying away from the 500. So all that shit. So that's, yeah. But you're a dumbass. And this is be smart, he says. I'm better equipped, I think,
Divided up like
for this channel.
this? Well, sure, part of that is because you can combine small units to make bigger ones, but it feels like money covers the range pretty evenly, doesn't it?
No.
Really makes you start asking questions, huh?
No.
Don't worry, it's about to get even weirder. Let's
It's not weird. You're stupid.
do another experiment.
You are stupid, and you get along with other stupid people, and that's okay, but you're acting like something that is very basic and trivial is advanced because you are a common. Never mind.
Your task is to determine whether a number is larger or smaller than 55. Hit the button in your right hand if it's larger, and the button in your left if it's
I
smaller.
can't play because my hand is silly. So
Okay.
Smaller.
Smaller,
Smaller.
bigger. That one's bigger. Smaller again. Bigger again. That one's smaller. That one's smaller.
Yeah.
Bigger.
Yeah.
But what happens if I switch the buttons? So now you hit the right button if it's smaller, and the left button if it's bigger.
You're talking about familiarity. You built up a pattern, and then you change the pattern, and most people are going to rely on the mechanics of that pattern, especially if they're stupider. But a smarter person is constantly going to be refining. They changed. So they're less likely to make that mistake. Whereas a dumb person is like, "I wasn't thinking," right? So
Well, people answer significantly faster if right means larger. It's as if you have a literal number line.
no, because what I just said, you can't. What if you change and you started the other way and then you flipped them later? Then you change your result to be the opposite. People thought the opposite.
In your head, because that's how we write the number line.
No.
Bigger is to the right. Conclusion is
No, you're stupid. There's a fucking mechanical bias there. It's, again, you're used to small on the left, bigger on the right. And if you switch it, then you're thinking small on the left, larger on the right. But you switched it so it doesn't count. And you're like, oh, and that's what I said. Stupid people are likely to make that mistake, and smart people are not. The reason why is because stupid people, I wasn't thinking. Whereas smart people, that's all I was thinking about was they switched. Don't hit it, and your mind is there. And this is why your relationships are harder to work out in life, because it's more frugal because you're actually paying attention. Whereas when you're stupider, you pay less attention, so you tend to get along. And why I do so well at parties when I'm drunk, because I get stupid and I relate to stupid people. I hate to say it, but that's what it is. And when I'm sober, I'm too smart, and people just don't get me. That what are you talking about? And I'm like, ugh. But yeah, so
is obvious. When you compare two numbers, you aren't computing them or subtracting them. You are physically comparing them in space. Okay, well maybe that's because most people are right-handed.
No.
Except left-handers show the same right equals larger reflex. And when people cross their hands, they still answer larger faster for whatever hand is
it's because you put this one first.
physically on the right side of their body. That's your right, but Is this because basically from birth, we're programmed
No.
everywhere we look to think of bigger numbers on the right? And guess what? People from cultures where they learn to read right to left show the opposite. They tend to associate larger numbers with the left.
Chances are because they do the same exam you did, but they start the opposite way as well. So you're like, which left to right? Okay, now we're gonna switch it right to left, and they're gonna have those results because you had to test that way, because you built up a habit, and then you changed the game, but the habits are still there. That's what I'm saying. If you make the game and build the habit the opposite, and then you switch, and then you play the game, more than likely people are going to play with this being the more common side, because this is 0 in their mind and this is 10 or whatever. Right? Because you just, anyways.
Because their mental number line goes the opposite way.
Shut up.
This is really weird.
No.
Of course, humans
You're really stupid.
have two ways of thinking about numbers. We have specific words and language and symbols we use, like 3 or 7 or 99. But humans have only been using these words and symbols for a few thousand years at the most. And psychologists have gathered a lot of evidence that we have these other, more ancient, abstract ways of thinking about numerical quantities, this number sense that sort of hides under the surface and pokes through in some weird ways. We know this abstract number sense is pretty ancient because cute little babies have shown that they have an innate sense of numbers long before they recognize words or symbols.
You're stupid. Oh my god, the baby, it knew there's 2 cans. No, it knew that there was 1 can, slide, and there was another one, slide. Oh look, it says 2. No, it doesn't, baby, it's just 1 and 1. Or it's just, how many cans are there? There's 1 can and then there is 1 can. Right, because it depends on how you teach them and with numbers and whatnot.
And even other animals can count and keep track of them much.
But they're not using math. They're just using the thing. 1 fish plus 1 fish is 2 fish, the same way as 1 plus 1 is 2, but they're not equal because in your mind it's 1 plus 1 is 2, but down here there's actually 2 fucking fish, and just because it's 2 doesn't make it 2, right?
Of things. For a long time, people thought babies were born, well, totally dumb. That their brain.
No, you're dumb. Babies are actually the most intelligent creatures in the world. This is why young kids are targeted by China and Japan and ruined with these mundane games, and why our people are so fucking stupid these days.
Brain was like a blank page, and they only figured out that
that's what makes them so fucking great at learning, because they're a blank page ready to go, whereas an adult is not a blank page. They're a crumpled and ripped up page, and you're trying to put memories and thoughts on that shit, but it's a crumpled and ripped up page. It's just gonna be a lot harder to get notes on that page to stick, because there's already there to stick. There's already things there. But with the baby, it's a clean page, so whatever you teach, it's gonna stick as long as you teach it right, as long as it's actually paying attention. If you're talking to it and it's looking over here and doing all this stuff, chances are he's not paying attention to you. He's not gonna learn very well. But if he's logged on and learning, then yeah, it's...
Objects exist and how they interact with each other by observing their environment. Now, babies are not smart.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm allowed to say that because I've raised 2 of them.
And I feel bad for them because they probably have a really fucking stupid father who thinks that they're stupid, but in reality, they're really fucking smart. In fact, I love kids because they are so smart and they aren't closed-minded. and basically I could talk about numbers and how math is wrong and all this shit, and like, wow, really, that's cool. Whereas the John's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're dumb. It's because they're closed-minded because all the bullshit. Anyways.
But newer science has shown that even at birth, they have some kind of idea of numbers.
No, they don't.
Like if I put these 2 rows of M&Ms in front of a 2-year-old, they're gonna pick this row every
No shit. Not because of the numbers, but because there's more of them.
time. I mean, they're not idiots. If you show an infant a bunch of cards with 2 objects, and then suddenly throw in a card with 3 objects, they just stare at the one with 3. Like,
why? Is it because of the purple?
whoa, something's clearly different here.
You're hella dumb. It's not because that 2 became a 3. It's because there's another animal there.
Infants can even do addition.
God, you're a fucking dumbass.
Show a 4 or 5-month-old
This is a perfect example of basically he's a sheep, part of a system, and whatever. But it's nerd and meathead, basically. And they're both stupid because they have no intelligence. But one is education, and one is physical exertion. But they don't think; they just act, basically. And he's a nerd who has a lot of education but no intelligence at all.
toy. Then hide it. Now move another toy behind that hidden area. If you reveal 2 toys behind the card, baby's like, this is all good, nothing's amiss here. But do some trickery and reveal just 1 toy, and they're like, whoa, hold on a sec, what tomfoolery is afoot here?
Hold on, you added 2 there, and there's only 1 there. Math. No, it's because they thought there was something and you tricked
Here,
them.
Mrs. Scientist. Baby's
It's the same thing with a monkey. It's like, oh, it's in your hand. Oh shit, it's on your hand. It's on math. It's just
clearly understand that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 1.
no. It's thinking you put 1 there, and it's not there. That's what it's thinking. It's not nothing to do with math. You fucking.
It's not exactly linear algebra,
God damn, you're a fucking idiot.
but we clearly have an innate sense of quantity before
No.
we can speak or read numbers
No,
or go pee-pee in the potty.
no. Go pee pee in your brain because there's a big hole there, and it's probably gonna get to the ground way sooner than peeing in a hole. I don't know.
We even see hints of number sense in other animals too. But strangely, these other species show some similar patterns to what we see in humans in a test like this. Quickly quantifying 1 to 4 objects, but becoming slower and less accurate for more objects. Given 2 choices, wild monkeys will choose the container containing more apple slices, as long as each container contains fewer than 5 pieces. Schooling fish will always join a bigger group with 5 apple slices. Wild monkeys will choose the container containing more apple slices, as long as each container contains fewer than 5 pieces.
Okay, what does that prove? Nothing.
Schooling fish will always join a bigger group with 3 rather than 2 fish, or 4 rather than 3. But to choose the larger school beyond that, the difference has to be 8 versus 4 fish, or 16 versus 8 fish. As if they're using one way of counting small numbers and a different, more fuzzy way of quantifying large numbers. 16 group in 5 pieces. Schooling fish will always join a bigger group with 3 rather than 2 fish.
That's because you look at it and the bottom one has more. I'm gonna join that one.
Or 4 rather than 3.
Right, because that one has more.
But to choose the larger school beyond that, the difference has to be 8 versus 4 fish.
I don't see how you make this jump. How does 3 and 4 jump to 8? What about 5 and 4? 6 and 4, 7 and 4. Why does it jump to 8? And why aren't you shooting it down or just saying what happens. And even if it's good or bad, we should know the results one way or another. So we have no more intellectual questions about, oh, it's because you're a dumbass, right? You didn't think about the fact that people with actual intelligence are actually walking with you, and since you skipped because you're dumbass and those steps don't exist to you, you didn't bother to face them. But me as an intellectual, me knowing those steps exist and they need to be addressed, but you skipped them, and so that's, yeah, because you're a dumbass. Sorry, yeah.
Or 16 versus 8 fish.
What about it?
As if they're using one way of
Or maybe you're using one way of
counting
grouping.
small numbers and a different, more fuzzy way of quantifying large
We can't. It's undecided.
numbers.
We can't say.
Just like we do.
Can't say. You didn't cover it enough.
Scientists believe humans and other animals share two kinds of innate number senses. One is used to represent exact quantities from 1 to 4. This might be why crows can count out up to 4 caws in response to different prompts, or why even simple-brained animals like bees can count up to 4 landmarks while navigating to food sources.
You gotta show your method, son.
The other number
All that just doesn't matter because you're not talking about method.
sense is more approximate. It's
Like, I don't. How did you figure this? What? I don't.
better at estimating the differences in quantities. This is why chimpanzees will only attack an intruder if they outnumber him 3 to 1 or more.
They will only attack an intruder if they outnumber him 3 to 1 or more. So they will only attack you if they outnumber them. You're adding a lot of context there that does not need to be there, you dumbass.
Or why most animals can judge which choice has more food, where the most
You act like you need to know math in order to know that 5 oranges is more than 4 oranges. You don't. You can just be like, oh, look, this has more oranges than that one does. Oh, look, he must know math because he knew 5 was bigger than 4. No, chances are I just know that 5 is bigger than 4 because 5 is more than 4. It literally is just more. If it was just numbers, then you can say, okay, pick the 5 or a 4. Then you can say, but if it's actually 5 oranges versus 4 oranges, you're a dumbass.
predators are, or where the least rival mate choice has more food, where the most predators are, or where the least rival mates are. In cases like these, fuzzier
Because when I look over a mountain, if I just see one sitting there, it means nothing. But if I know math and I see one there, hey, that one, that's only one because I know math. So now that one means something. So now I know the one is only one and now I can jump. Whereas before then, that one was unknown.
estimates of magnitude are often good enough. Scientists are still just starting to scratch the surface when it comes to understanding how universal this innate number sense really is among other animals. But they are starting to understand that some parts of animal brains contain number neurons that are specially tuned to fire strongly in response to one.
That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard.
Number, and other parts of the brain that are used to compare the
Or maybe it's correlation, and that your brain is correlated to that number, and you're reacting to it because of the correlation to it, and not because that's kind of what it is. It's like a language. Me saying words doesn't mean anything unless you know the meaning of the word. You're the problem, sir. You are the problem with humanity. You are that scientist that went too far and your oxygen tank disconnected and you're still going, and then you're like trying to send shit back, but it's not making sense because you have no oxygen in your brain, and you're becoming a Martian because you lost your train of thought and you don't know what the fuck you're talking. Oh, God damn.
the size of objects, or that, and other parts of the brain that are used to compare the size of objects.
I can only measure a ball if I know math. Wow.
Or that let us move in space, they are also used when we compare approximate quantities.
Or is it that the approximate quantities are used in the same sequence that those things are used in the sequence? And it's not so much the matter that's charging it or that's flaring it or whatever, but the fact that whatever it is flaring it. Maybe that's what it is.
These regions of the brain
But no, it must be the numbers exactly. Stupid ass.
are connected to many other senses, which is why counting is something we can do not just for what we see, but for what we hear or what we touch too. Understanding where our innate number sense comes from is important because 3 to 7% of people suffer from a learning disorder called dyscalculia, which prevents them from understanding numbers and doing math, which can obviously be a big hurdle in their future.
Not really. I am the smartest man alive, and I don't rely on math at all. I use a calculator.
Sure. But it is human.
It's good to be able to do the math because dumbasses like him might try to trick you and say 2 plus 2 is 5, so you want to know what 2 plus 2 is, so you know he's lying, but you want to know it because of that, but that, calculator won't lie to you unless you probably got it from him and it's programmed to be wrong. But yeah, anyways.
Who invented a language and series of precise
Language, right.
Symbols to represent
Language, symbols, right.
Numbers.
Invent, right.
And once we learn how to use them, those symbols let us deal with precise numbers.
No. They don't let you deal with precise numbers. They allow you to give that precise measurement a number, basically. Is what's going on. You're putting the cart before the horse.
Small or large or gigantic ones even, and combine and manipulate and measure them in complex ways with little to no fuzziness or approximation. That very same symbolic precision has allowed us to do all of this science that let us understand all these hidden and innate number senses that we aren't conscious of. Symbolic language has even taught us why we have number symbols in the first place. Or to put it another way, what numbers are even for?
No.
Stay curious.
Yeah, stay curious. But don't listen to him when it comes to learning things because he's a dumbass. Be smart, indeed. This is why you shouldn't listen to him because he likes to put the cart before the horse, so I don't know what the fuck.
Hey, you like this show? Great.
No. But yeah, there you go. So, yeah.
Give you some if you're 4.
He's a dumbass. I don't know what he's talking about. He's putting the cart before the horse. He's trying to say that math and numbers are more than they are. They're just a language, dude. Math is a language. The same thought process behind it is the same thing as a language. Basically, you learn Spanish the same way you learn numbers. Pretty much, they calculate, they do all this stuff because of rules that are set, not because numbers actually exist. And because when you push a 3 into a 4 becomes a 7, no, because we decided that 3 and 4 is a 7 because it's a language. It's nothing more, and that's it. As far as recognizing things as familiarity has nothing more to do with anything than that. It's just you're very familiar with it, so you're faster with it. And bigger numbers, you're not as familiar with because you don't deal with them unless you're super smart. In which case, yeah, you probably look at that number 50 and you're able to, but oh, there's 52 of them because you look at 50 as much as somebody looks at two. But yeah, like a banker, for example, a banker probably would be able to completely destroy somebody when it comes to putting them against something like that. But, and again, if all the tests that you did, instead of picking random people, if you went 10 to 20 to 30 years old, all the way up to 100, you'd notice that the older you are, the more you could figure it out because they tend to deal with bigger numbers later in life. Whereas kids are more 1, 2, and 3, basically, so they may be able to like figure out 5 and 1 and 2 and why. Like for example, there's people like League of Legends, there's a champion called Draven. Kids, yeah, they will fucking handle with Draven because he's the most like open-ended fucking dumbass champion in the world. Or Lee Sin, right? Or Xin Zhao. There's certain champions that are very basic, pretty much. And if you, it's kind of like a mage, basically. If you're too out there in the ether, and then Draven comes up and just, and you just have no idea how to defend against it, you're dead. That's it. But if you're actually a mage, you gotta space yourself, then suddenly that Draven's fucked. So, yeah. And it's harder to space a Draven than it is at Lee Sin because Draven's actually a ranged character versus Xin Zhao, for example, who's a melee character. The second you kill him once, he's fucking dead. But Draven, no, he's still in there. He's still in there. But all depends. So, anyways, yeah, you're a dumbass. You're drama out. Numbers have nothing to do with anything you're thinking about. It's not memory. It's not anything of the sort. It's a language. You're a dumbass, and you are a stupid idiot. Uh, like a program is. It's kind of what you are. You are a teacher that only teaches inside the book, and you cannot push outside the book, outside what is. You have no philosophy about you. You have no, even Neil deGrasse Tyson is the same thing. Like, I listen to him, he's the same thing as a book. He's no outside thinking. He knows the math and language, and that's it, but that's as far as he goes. Like me, I know language is a limitation. I know that math is a limitation. I know that math only works because it will allow it to. And the same thing with language, and to operate beyond is to go beyond both. In which case, I do that, do that, do that. And so, like, it just depends. Anyways, yeah. I said you're stupid, but anyways, anyway, yeah, I'm out here. So be well, be happy, be safe. I'm the smartest man in the world. I may not be as educated as most people, but that's why I'm the smartest. Because most people that are education based, the problem is that the whole system was taken over by corrupt douchebags that just wanted to be famous and make money, so they can invent it and change the rules and all kinds of bullshit, and they're gonna lead you off the road into the corner into a black hole, all to just to make themselves famous. But it won't make sense once you think about it. Unless you follow me, I'm learning to think proper. But anyways, people, I'll be happy, safe. No one's gonna see this shit. So peace. I'm out later.